On February 9th, 2004, in the heart of a harsh New Hampshire winter, the clock read approximately 7:30 p.m. when a car crashed into a tree on remote Route 112 in Haverhill. This trivial traffic accident was not the end of a story, but the beginning of one of America's most obsessive and disturbing modern missing person enigmas: the case of Maura Murray. Maura, a promising 21-year-old nursing student, was not just a random victim of fate. Her story is intrinsically linked to a series of bizarre and inexplicable events that preceded her enigmatic flight, suggesting a mind in deep crisis, a planned destiny, or something much more sinister and imposed. In the Archive Mind, we will meticulously reconstruct the timeline of her disappearance, analyze the neglected forensic evidence, the critical law enforcement errors, and dive deep into the most persistent theories involving her inner circle, a local bus driver, and most troubling of all, the silence and contradictions of the authorities. This is not a simple mystery. It is a labyrinth of half-truths and locked doors that defies every attempt at a logical solution. To truly understand the mystery, we must first analyze the chaos that consumed Maura Murray's life in the weeks before her disappearance. Maura was a dedicated nursing student at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, known for her athletic talent in long-distance running. However, the year 2004 marked a series of turbulent events, triggering an emotional spiral. 3 days before her flight, Maura was involved in a minor car accident, significantly denting the car of her father, Fred Murray, which she was driving. The incident, though covered by insurance, left her visibly upset, intensifying an underlying anxiety. Shortly before, she had been caught in a minor shoplifting situation involving makeup on campus, a lapse in judgment totally uncharacteristic of her profile. But the final catalyst for her decision to flee seems to have occurred the night before the disappearance. Maura was at her campus job at UMass when she received a phone call that, according to witnesses and co-workers, sent her into an immediate and profound emotional crisis. She was found by a supervisor, paralyzed and crying hysterically, unable to calm down for about 15 minutes. The content of this call remains to this day the first major question mark in the case. What was said that led to such an extreme reaction? The police were never able to identify or trace the origin of that call, leaving Maura's motivation shrouded in mystery. On the morning of Monday, February 9th, Maura took a series of methodical actions that suggested planning, but also a desperate impulsivity. She sent emails to professors and supervisors, alleging a fabricated family emergency and promising to return in a week. She researched driving routes, looking at destinations like Burlington, Vermont, and New Hampshire's White Mountains. This duality of planning and evasion is disconcerting. Her next stop was crucial: the liquor store. She bought a significant amount of alcohol, a bottle of vodka, a bottled cocktail of Baileys and Kahlua, enough to suggest a prolonged trip or an attempt at self-medication. Shortly after, she took her car, her father's black Saturn, still showing visible damage from the previous accident, and disappeared into the winter landscape. She took with her money, her clothes, and some textbooks, but left behind her laptop and most of her belongings. She seemed to be running from something, but was she running to somewhere? And most importantly, was she alone? Her journey ended abruptly around 7:30 p.m. on remote Route 112 in the town of Woodsville, New Hampshire. Maura lost control of the vehicle on a winding curve and crashed into a tree and a snowbank. The location, known for its sparse population and lack of lighting, is a perfect setting for a disappearance. The accident was witnessed by a local resident who was returning home in a school bus with a group of children identified as Butch Atwood. Atwood stopped and asked if Maura needed help. Maura's response, having just crashed, is the central act of the enigma. She vehemently refused help. She told Atwood she had already called the auto club, AAA, which was an obvious lie, given the lack of cell phone signal in the area and the fact that the call was never made. Atwood, seeing that the young woman seemed sober and calm, continued on his way, but acted quickly upon arriving home, calling the police at 7:43 p.m. When the police, represented by Sergeant Cecil Smith, arrived at the scene about 10 minutes after Atwood's call, Maura Murray had vanished. The accident scene was bizarre and revealing. The car door was locked. There were stains of red wine inside the vehicle, an indication that she had been drinking in the car. A bottle of vodka was missing, and the bus driver had seen her with what looked like a can of beer. A handwritten note detailing instructions for Maura's boyfriend was on the seat. The windshield was broken from the collision. The police found the car, but the driver had vanished into the cold New Hampshire air, leaving behind her chaotic past, but taking the rest of her life with her, implying the flight was rapid and perhaps unexpected. Maura's absence triggered an alarm, but the initial investigation failed miserably to generate immediate results. The police initially believed that Maura, ashamed of the accident, scared of the possibility of a DUI, and overwhelmed by the stress of her life, had fled the scene and died of hypothermia in the vast New Hampshire woods. However, a massive search in the subsequent days, using trained scent dogs and helicopters, found not a single trace of Maura in the snow around the car. Crucially, the scent dogs were unable to pick up a trail leading away from Route 112, only one that went along the road for about 30 meters, and then disappeared. The absence of footprints other than Maura's at the accident scene raised the first and most persistent theory. Maura was picked up by a passing motorist. The only other circumstantial evidence came from a local couple, the Murrays. They claimed to have seen a car parked near the accident site. It was around 8:00 p.m., and they saw Maura's Saturn and a dark four-wheel drive vehicle parked nearby. They claimed to have seen a person in the dark car, possibly smoking, but didn't pay much attention and only reported the information later. The police investigated a local truck driver who had a similar car and claimed to have seen nothing, and quickly dismissed his involvement. This failure to secure and protect the crime scene was a critical investigative error. Sergeant Smith was the only officer on the scene for about 10 minutes, and the absence of an effective security perimeter allowed snow and subsequent traffic to compromise any potential evidence. The theories attempting to solve the Maura Murray case have split into three main categories, each revealing how incomplete the investigation has remained. Theory 1. The stress flight, voluntary disappearance, and a new start. This theory, favored by authorities early on, suggests that Maura, crushed by the shame of the accident, the shoplifting accusation, and the emotionally crippling mystery call, simply decided to disappear and start a new life. The fact that she withdrew money, bought alcohol, and packed her belongings into a backpack suggests she was planning a trip, not suicide. Supporters of this theory cite her desire to escape academic pressure and her turbulent life. The major problem with this theory is timing and logistics. She would have had to flee quickly after Atwood's arrival, and she never contacted anyone in her family again, which is extremely unlikely for a young woman so connected to her parents and siblings. Furthermore, she never accessed her bank accounts or social media. What prevented her from communicating after 2004? This requires her to have successfully forged a new identity and survived for over 2 decades without a support network. Theory 2. Foul play and abduction. This is the darkest theory, supported by many amateur sleuths and Maura's father. It suggests that Maura, in a panic, alone in the cold, and trying to flee the scene, accepted a ride from a motorist with ill intentions who abducted and killed her. The crucial factor here is the absence of a struggle or traces of blood in the car. The killer would have had to clean the scene perfectly, which is almost impossible in such an exposed area unless the encounter didn't happen at the crash site. But somewhere else Maura fled to, an even more disturbing variation, is the involvement of a local police officer. This theory gained popularity due to the area's proximity to state police and the apparent slowness and initial disinterest of authorities in investigating the disappearance thoroughly. The fact that Sergeant Smith was slow to report a subsequent incident involving Maura Murray suggests a possible obstruction in the investigation. Theory 3. Military connection and cover-up, the involvement of Billy Rausch. Maura's boyfriend at the time, Billy Rausch, was a military man from West Point Academy. A theory that gained traction suggests that the mysterious phone call that made Maura cry was from him, possibly admitting to infidelity or informing her of a serious problem. Billy's involvement in the search and his subsequent behavior were closely examined. A more extreme variation suggests that Billy or someone linked to his military community, may have met with Maura after the accident to help her disappear, and that the military community may have used its influence to hinder the official investigation, which would explain the silence and the inexplicable failures in police procedures. This theory is highly speculative, but attempts to explain the total absence of evidence. The most mysterious and often ignored element is the timeline of post-disappearance communications. In 2005, a year after the disappearance, Maura's father, Fred Murray, received a strange map of North Carolina. In 2006, he received a postcard from an unknown sender signed You-Know-Who, with an enigmatic message about the White Mountains. In 2007, a YouTube user who called themselves 112 Dirtbag posted a bizarre but suggestive video containing news clips about the case, and later a silent and creepy video of a man laughing, which many interpreted as a confession or a taunt. This online true crime community, obsessed with the case, created noise that often obscured the real police investigation, but also kept the case alive, which is a modern paradox. From 2009 onwards, media and public interest forced authorities to reopen and reinvigorate the search. In 2011, the FBI officially joined the case, a tacit admission of the failures of the local police. However, without a body, without a clear crime scene, and with the purely circumstantial evidence contaminated by the passage of time and the nature of the initial investigation, the Maura Murray case remains unsolved. The truth is that, in the cold of New Hampshire, a young woman disappeared, taking the answers with her. The Maura Murray case is a Rorschach test for society. Do you see a woman who sought anonymity and found it, or a victim who encountered evil on a dark road? The absence of a body, the baggage of stress, and the mysterious phone call make this mystery an archive that may never be fully opened, but which continues to resonate with the anxieties of modern life. Let us know which theory you find most plausible in the comment archive below. If you wish to unravel the deepest and most complex mysteries of history and true crime, subscribe to the Archive Mind and hit the bell. The next archive is ready to be opened.